We're looking here at Jeremiah. Well, last week, where did we stop at? 17?
Right there.
10.
10? Oh, okay.
10.
These are on the handout I just gave you.
Okay.
And they got the verses with them. I think last time I put the verses up, you might have copied them off here, but I think I left all the verses on there.
Yeah, they're on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Jeremiah's ministry here and how he did minister to those in captivity and the ones who were still in Judah at the time. By far, the vast majority of the people had been would end up in captivity, but there would be a small remnant left behind. You remember the remnant? We talked about that. Was illustrated by the few hairs. Remember that Ezekiel would put in his belt, and so it represented Jedaliah and Jeremiah, and those that were left behind here. But he did deal with the problems here. They built the high place of Topheth, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and I may have pointed this out, may not have. Valley of Hinnom is where they burned their garbage, and so it was constantly on fire. That's where 24 hours a day it would burn. And the Old Testament word Gehenna comes from that idea. Now Gehenna though is one of the words for hell. And so what God did was he gave them a word that they could identify with. Okay, Gehenna is hell, and it's a place of fire, just like the garbage dump is a place of fire. So it was just something to secure in their mind the understanding of what hell was like. To burn their sons and daughters in the fire, which I commanded not, neither came in my heart. You know, these things are hopefully so foreign to us we can't even come close to identify with, people taking their children and burning them in a fire and claiming that they're serving God. But we live in a society where it can become so normal people won't think twice about it. And I really believe that. I mean, it happened to Israel. Deuteronomy 28 and 29, that was a blessings and cursings chapter for Israel. Remember the two mountains, Ebal and Gerizim, Mount of cursing, Mount of blessing. And God told them exactly what would happen. If you follow me, then you'll be blessed. If you don't follow me, you'll be cursed. And one of the ways of the cursing would be that you could get so far away you would turn to eating your own children. Well, that happened in Israel. It happened in the northern kingdom. It happened even in Judah and the southern kingdom, where people never thought twice about that. And that should be something so far removed from our thinking that it wouldn't be an option even to think of, to come up with. But sin, our country has kicked God out of our society, out of the schools, out of government, out of everything for years and years and years. And then when something happens, people say, well, where's your God at now? Like, you kicked him out 30 years ago. Where do you think he's at? When you kick God out, this is the results of what's going to happen. And I can't stop that. So, we are living in a culture that has kicked God out. We're going to have problems. We're going to have people offering up their children as burnt sacrifices. I can see that happen in this country. I can see looking at the headline tonight on the news of somebody in some state who did this. I mean, at one time I thought that could never happen. And I'm sure in Deuteronomy 28, when Moses wrote it down, he probably thought, well, this is pretty harsh. I really don't think this could ever happen. And yet it did. Even in Solomon's day it did. And Solomon himself was allowed this and participated. Jeremiah says they have built also the high places of Baal to burn their sons with fire for burnt offerings unto Baal. Again, which I commanded not, nor spake it, neither came it to my mind. God says, I didn't think this up. These things are happening. The cursings of Deuteronomy 28 were not ordained by God. God didn't say, I'm going to make you turn to eating your own children. That's not what God did. God said, if you get so far away from me, then in your way of thinking, you could do any of these abominations, even eating your own children. Yes, that did happen. Did God cause that to happen? No. God just knew of their wicked ways and saying, if you get so far away that your sinful way of life could do unimaginable things. And we're living in a culture today where I'm not surprised anymore. I mean, people's mentality is so far different from my mentality today that I can't even understand it. I mean, I can't understand, saw a senator refer to a woman, ask her a question about pronouns.
About what?
Pronouns.
Oh, pronouns.
You know, now people say, you know, my name is Doug, he, him. I'm thinking, and he asked this woman about it, just asked her. And she went off on him, said, listen, what you have just done is caused, there's people that are transgender who are on the verge of suicide, and you are killing them by that. He said, by asking questions? She said, yes. I'm thinking, how can, I mean, if somebody just really wanted to learn about it, you can't even ask that question. I'm thinking, I don't understand that mentality. I mean, I cannot grasp that. I mean, at least be able to ask questions, you'd think. You know, but that's the mentality of the sinful mind. That we live in a society I never thought would happen. I never thought we'd be discussing things that we're discussing today. Declare ye in Judah and publish in Jerusalem and say, blow ye the trumpet in the land, cry together and say, assemble yourselves and let us go into the defense cities. Set up the standard towards Zion and retire, stay not, for I will bring evil from the north. It's talking about Babylon, even though they were located east. God brought them down from the north. And I emphasize that because the Gog and Magog we've talked about so many times before is going to come from the north, and people say that's got to be Russia because they're from the north, and Russia's maybe to the north, but definitely it's Babylon. And in fact, Gog and Magog is Persia, is one of the countries that is listed. But anyway, the lion has come up from his thicket, and the destroyer of the Gentiles is on his way. He is gone forth from his place to make thy land desolate, and thy cities shall be laid waste without an inhabitant. So judgment is coming. The Gentiles are coming in, and it's going to wipe you out.
Verse 5, maybe I'm really not thinking the right way, but what is that,
defense cities, fortified cities.
But is that the cities that you taught us about, a refuge?
No.
It's not?
No,
Okay.
it's just, it'd be like Jerusalem has a big wall around it.
Okay.
You're defending yourself by the walls, but that's not what happened.
Okay, because I was looking at it
Yes.
the wrong way. Okay.
Jerusalem was surrounded like hunters, moving into a wild and wounded animal. It says, the shepherds with their flocks shall come unto her. They shall pitch their tents against her round about. They shall feed everyone in his place. Prepare you war against her. Arise and let us go up at noon. Woe unto us, for the day goeth away. For the shadows of the evening are stretched out. Arise and let us go up by night, and let us destroy her palaces. So there's no escaping this. And Jeremiah is not doing this with any joy. He's telling them, you need to repent because this is the results of what's going to happen. The trees said, thus said Lord of hosts, and cut down, hew you down trees, cast them out against Jerusalem. This is a city to be visited. She is holy oppression in the midst of her. So again, the gates of the city won't stand up against the battering rams. Therefore will I do unto this house, which is called by my name, wherein you trust. And that's the problem right there. That's where they trust. And the place which I gave to you and your fathers, as I have done to Shiloh. Shiloh, remember, was the first place the tabernacle was set up when the children of Israel crossed in, when Joshua came in. And they set the tabernacle up there, and then later on that's where David wanted to bring it into Jerusalem. And so God's reminding them of what happened at Shiloh. Well, the first thing that happened at Shiloh is when Eli and Hophni and Phinehas, his sons, there was a battle going on, and Hophni and Phinehas came and they took the ark and carried it into battle, thinking this is our good luck charm. And what happened was it was captured by the Philistines and taken over to one of their cities and put up in the house of faith gods. We talked about that, where Dagon, the fish god, first night fell over and they stood it back up, and the next night it fell over and broke the head off of it. But what happened? God removed the tabernacle from the people. I mean, Hophni and Phinehas says this is a good idea, and they both died in battle, and Eli hears about it, falls over backwards in his chair, because the Bible says he was a fat man, and broke his neck, because God ended up taking the tabernacle from them. And as God had done there, God says, this house which I call my name, wherein you trust, the problem is, they trusted in the temple. And that was the problem. Because even in captivity, in Ezekiel, it talks about that they thought, we're not going to stay in captivity. We have the temple back home. As long as the temple exists, that means God has a place for us to go worship, so we know we're going back, because why would God give us a temple and not allow us to be at it? And then the news came to Ezekiel that said, the city is smitten. 4 words, and the people wept greatly because they thought, now we have no hope. If the temple's gone, we don't have any hope. It's not the temple. The temple was a building. It's like the church being a place of good luck. It's not. It's not the church. It's what's done.
Can you say that again about Shiloh? What was it? It was the first place that they did.
Put the tabernacle when they set up the tabernacle when they came into the promised land.
Okay.
And enemy troops would move in. Oops. Oh, I already had the verses listed here. That's what I did. Enemy troops would be moving among people, and of course that happened. Many would die by the sword, disease, starvation. Some would be scattered as chaff by the fierce winds of the hair that was sown up. Unburied corpses would litter the valleys outside Jerusalem. And imagine what that would do right there. I can remember back in the 90s, I can't remember exactly what year it was, maybe 95, 94, somewhere around then. There was a great tsunami in New Guinea. And one of the islands of New Guinea, it just completely destroyed the whole island. And everybody died on it, including all the animals. And for a long time, they couldn't go to that island because of the death that was on the island, of the decaying corpses of the animals and of the people. And the disease was so great, what they did was they just basically cut it off from everything for years until all the animals completely rotted away and people rotted away. It was so bad. And you think about this, I mean, this is a lot of people right here that's going to die. 2/3 of the population end up dying. I think what's going to be in the tribulation period.
I was just getting ready to say.
Because when you're talking tribulation period, probably around, my guess, and it's a guess, but I'm reasonable guess, is there over 3 billion people will
3
die.
billion?
3 billion will lie by the end of the Gog and Magog war. And that's why the Bible says to me 7 months just burying the dead. And that's not a one funeral at a time.
It's a mass.
Mass funerals with tractors, and, bulldozers, and mass graves. I mean, so
Who's gonna be doing all that?
I hope not me. We'll be in glorified bodies at that point. So, I think I'll be on vacation that
Well,
For
the
7
blood will be high as
as a horse's bridle. Yeah, at the second coming, we come back with Jesus. That's when he kills those who survived up at that point that weren't saved. So not only the dead corpses of the billions, those who survived, and the blood will be as deep as a horse's bridle. And that's something like a 200-mile valley. So this is not a pleasant thing. And you think about that. For 1,000-year millennial kingdom, which will be a wonderful time for us and for the people there, but it's still people who will be living in their physical, normal bodies like we have today, who will remember what they saw. I mean, it's like PTSD. I mean, I know some people that truly, I think a lot of people claim they have PTSD because they want disability. I know some people who have it, who, even from Vietnam, who have it. It was shell shock back then, who still can't cope in some areas. So in a 1,000-year period of time, there's going to be a lot of people who really remember. And it's probably a good thing they remember. because the importance of serving God. But then Judah's enemies break open the sacred graves of her kings. This is a big deal. It's not to us. I mean, we would consider it to be very wrong and all that. But to the Jews, to break open the graves, it's a big, big deal. In fact, even today, Palestinians and Jews both, one thing they will not desecrate are graves. I remember going up to near Galilee, driving up, there was a sarcophagus sticking out of the mountainside, a part of one, where the rain had eroded away and you could see it. And I asked them about it, and they said that, well, the government will come by and deal with that. And I thought, well, why nobody will mess with it? And they said, oh no, nobody touch that. People won't, because they just don't desecrate graves. And so, for this to happen, to the Jews, that's more of an impact statement than it would be even to us. I mean, I never understood people going to graveyards and knocking over tombstones. I think it's horrible. But it's not a great abomination. To the Jews, it's a great abomination. Thousands will be carried away into Babylon for 70 years. This whole land shall be a desolation and astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. So God gave them for 70 years. Thus saith Lord, that after 70 years be accomplished at Babylon, I will visit you and perform my good word towards you, in causing you to return to this place. That's exactly what happened. 606 BC, the captivity began. 536 BC, the captivity ended. Now, excuse me, what I said it wrong. 606 it began. 586 is when it was finalized. Right? They came back in 536. So if you take the beginning of 606, subtract 70, that's 536. However, the temple wasn't destroyed until 586. And the temple was finally restored in 516, which is also 70 years. So not only were they kicked out of land for 70, actually they did not have a temple for 70 as well. So God very much kept his word that it would be 70 years. Why 70?
Because God says so.
But there was a reason. They owed God 70 years.
Because of not.
The Sabbath year.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't keep the Sabbath year. Now, when I say they didn't keep Sabbath year for 490 years, those years weren't all in a row. Okay? When the children of Israel first went to the Promised Land under Joshua, the first 26 years, it covers the book of Joshua, every seventh year they would have kept the Sabbath year. Right? In the book of Judges, it covers 305-year period of time. I doubt very seriously if they kept the Sabbath year then. So out of those 305, they didn't keep it. The first 26, yes. Next 305, no. Then Eli came into being as the high priest in the book of Samuel. I doubt they kept it then. He wasn't the great man that he should have been. Saul, king for 40 years. I doubt they kept it. David, king for 40 years. They probably did. Solomon, king for 40 years. May have started off, but I kind of doubt they kept it the whole time. And then Rehoboam, who was wicked king, I doubt he kept it at all. And on down through the line. Hezekiah, yes. Josiah, yes. Jehoshaphat, probably. Uzziah, probably. Ahaz, no. Manasseh, no. So it's on and off, for a total of 490 years. And so you subtract out the Sabbath years, that's 70 years.
What about doing the judges? Did they?
Yeah, that's what they've done. Judges, I doubt it. 305-year period of time, I doubt they kept it.
Okay.
But like I say, not all consecutively, but God keeps records. You give God what's his, you get blessed. If God has to take it, you get cursed, chastened, and that's exactly what happened. They did not give God what belonged to God. God said, I want the land to rest for 70 years. It's going to rest. It says the severity of Judah's punishment would astonish the Gentiles. And it did. I mean, think about it. 2/3 of them dying. With the northern kingdom, 90% died. Southern kingdom was godly. 8 of the 20 rulers of Judah were godly rulers, not real godly, but some weren't, but they had revivals during those 8 different kings. The Northern Kingdom never had a single revival. It lasted 210 years. The Southern Kingdom had periods of revival lasted 345. But their devastation was great. I mean, the city completely destroyed. The walls, the temple gone, walls and streets destroyed. Very, very tough time. Jeremiah said, "Oh, that my head were waters and mine eyes a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people." But he had to witness all these things going on.
That's why he's called the weeping prophet.
That's exactly why he's called the weeping prophet.
Yeah.
Because it mattered to him.
Absolutely.
You know, I always want to emphasize that to myself as well as others. The importance of realizing the truth of the Word of God, and the lack of people serving God should bother us. Lack of souls getting saved should bother us. God's work, you know, like Nehemiah wept when he heard the walls and streets weren't being built. He cried over that. And I think sometimes we get so apathetic about the things going on in church today that we don't really weep over it anymore. We say, "Oh, it's a shame," or "it's too bad," or, you know, church ain't what it used to be, when it ought to really matter to us. Yeah. All right, let's close in prayer.